Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show Right Reason, where we talk about reasoning rightly with our esteemed co-host, star, the man, the
right reasoner.
Yeah, rightly reasonable, Dr. Charles Rice, University of Notre Dame Law School professor emeritus. We've spent this is the last show of this season, our first season, and we've spent pretty much the entirety of the first season here talking about, Thomas Aquinas and how we get to objective morality and what the church is teaching on informing conscience, and then all sort of the things that fall out from that, the moral choices people make about contraception, living together, all these sort of things. What the big hitch on this, and even Cardinal Dolan said this in March of 2012, that the bishops, the hierarchy, particularly in America, has simply not done a good job of communicating the faith, particularly in the areas of sexual morality, but in general. He said that they were gun shy, his words. They'd been gun shy because of just the massive, sort of protests back in the 60s and the early 70s and so forth, so on, about saying what the church is teaching is. What has the lack of Catholic education caused in your view of things?
I think it's been a disaster in the sense that it has caused a blackout on the ability of the graduates of these schools to make truly informed judgments. Mm-hmm. And we got to go back to the grade schools. I mean, the function of those schools is to teach basics. Mm-hmm. Not reading, writing, arithmetic,
sure,
right? And all these other things, and that has not been done sufficiently, even in the grade school level. You got this focus, this emphasis on every kid should have a computer at 6 or 7 years of age, and I think that's a mistake. But it really gets serious when you get up into the high schools and the colleges.
There's kind of I don't know any other way to say it, sort of a meltdown of an ability to think.
Right.
Isn't it? It gets right down to that sort of basic, that the ability to sort of string together, one thought, one well-informed, provable, ascertainable thought with another and develop logical results from these. That's kind of missing, isn't it?
Right. And there are a lot of ways you can analyze that. One of the problems is the disappearance of authentic core curricula.
Mm-hmm. Like what?
Well, for example, the basic idea that an entering freshman in college, state college, should take a progressive series of courses in philosophy. Mm-hmm. Logic, epistemology, natural theology, and ontology, cosmology, all the rest of the stuff.
Across the board, all schools?
I think so. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're in a situation where these kids are coming into law school that I consider great kids. I mean, great and very bright, and they really are very strongly motivated. Mm-hmm. But unless they come out of a strong evangelical or strong Catholic environment, especially the homeschool environment, they're really handicapped because they've really had no opportunity to be taught these things.
Yeah, so it's not a question of them. I mean, could you see these kids in front of you, even though you're retired, you're still teaching at Notre Dame?
Yeah.
You see these kids. I'm sure you visit with other university law school professors around the country and share notes and everything. It's not that the kids aren't, necessarily intelligent. You're not saying that.
Oh, no, Lord, no.
They're very intelligent.
Yeah.
But they're not. It's what their intelligence has been limited, what exposure their intelligence has had, right?
Well, it's been a lack through no fault of the student of access to the tradition that ought to underlie authentic education. For example, the principle of non-contradiction.
Right.
That being can't be non-being. That thing can't be and not be the same.
Why is it important to know that?
It's important to know it so you can get your mental furniture in order. So
I like that. Your mental furniture, get your house arranged.
Yes, so that you can say, well, yeah, there are some things that I know.
Yeah.
It's absolutely untrue that you can't know anything.
Mm-hmm.
What can we know? We can know that. We know the thing is what it is. It either is or it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And we go on to the whole idea of epistemology, the whole idea of how you form ideas.
How did we get to the point in let's talk about Catholic education, because that's, public education is public education, and what it is not run necessarily by Catholic principles, although you'd like to think so. Like to think it should be. How did we get so off the beam? We're just off the reservation in Catholic education these days. Formal, the sort of establishment Catholic education just isn't there. And I'm not even talking about learning the Ten Commandments, or I'm talking about just how to think.
Right.
It's not there.
Yeah, and you have a lot of explanations for that. I think it relates to the individualistic tenor of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
That when a kid comes into college, we shouldn't tell that student what to study. We should allow him to decide what he wants to study. So you have, without reference to any particular school, you have a situation where you say, well, okay, our students have to take 2 courses in philosophy, 2 courses in theology. This is our core. But apart from one basic in each subject,
mm-hmm.
they can take whatever they want,
right?
As long as it comes within that framework. And the Ratio Studiorum, the classical Jesuit tradition, is the one I came up under. It's the one I know best. And that involved a progression where you studied all these. Every 4 years you study this, and you end up with general ethics, special ethics, and that kind of thing, all from a natural law framework, and all based on the idea that your intellect is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Your intellect can do some things for you, and your intellect can put you in touch with reality. That's a great thing to know.
That's awesome thing. I taught 8th grade Catholic high school in the Bronx one year before I moved to Detroit.
Which one?
St. Philip Neri on Grand Concourse, 200 Grand Concourse, and shout out to the to the St. Philip Neri guys. And I was really amazed because I had left seminary, and that was like an off year. I'm deciding whether I was going back. And so what's fresh in my mind is all this philosophy from seminary.
Right.
And so when I got pegged to teach the religion class, and I was amazed at these 13-year-old brains sitting in front of me, and I was able to say, Thomas, I didn't say Thomas Aquinas, I didn't know who he was, but that information. And they were just like, boom, boom, grasp, yep, ding, 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 yep, got it, next. And I'd cover with them in like 1 or 2 class sessions what it took us 2 or 3 weeks to get through.
Yeah,
because they were just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course, yeah. You can't be your pen can't be a rhinoceros and a pen at the same time. Got it. What's the big confusion about that? And it was amazing. And so I there's been like a short selling of maybe in like all of these new educational theories of self-esteem and whatever. There's been the short selling of somebody's ability of like the human mind just sitting in front of you to actually be able to grasp this stuff. A lot of this stuff is not difficult. Figuring out specific applications for it, you have to start thinking in various ways sometimes, but the basics are not difficult.
Right.
But I'm me and I'm not you, and vice versa. Not difficult there.
Right. And that is something that the Catholic educational system did very well until after World War II. Yeah. And it began to fall apart, I suppose, in the 50s,
seems like
certainly in the 60s.
I think something that a lot of people are really unaware of is that sort of the formal education system, even here in the United States, but it obviously has a different spin on it here. But the idea of a university, this is a Catholic idea. It's a Catholic notion. The church built these.
Right.
Why? Why did the church build universities?
Well, that's a great point, because the as Ralph McInerney used to
God bless him.
emphasize,
God rest his
just
soul.
one of the great Notre Dame people, he said, wait a minute, this mindset sees a contradiction between being a Catholic university and a great university. He said only a Catholic university can be a great university. Cardinal Dulles said the same thing, and Newman said the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, the Catholic university is able to integrate knowledge and wisdom in the context of the big picture. See, now what's what's happened to the Catholic universities is a real disaster. I mean, and it filters down to the high schools,
Sure
to the
does.
grade schools, because the graduates of these Catholic universities are now the teachers there. See, and in the late 50s and through the 60s, early 60s, the Catholic universities had a dispute going on internally as to governance and all the rest of it. And they developed a concern in the mid-60s about getting federal money.
Right.
Where there was a case in Maryland where the Maryland Supreme Court in the Horace Mann case said that Catholic universities could not receive government money if they were too Catholic.
Right.
Any religious universities, all right?
Yeah. No worry about that today.
If they were too religious, yeah. So that was a problem, and they were concerned about that because they were convinced that they couldn't survive without government money, which I think was a misconception, all right? And but in any event, in 1967 at Land O'Lakes, which was the Notre Dame retreat up in Wisconsin, the heads of the Catholic universities came together, and they issued what's become known as the Land O'Lakes Declaration, which says that it said that to
Spearheaded by Father Ted Hesburgh.
yes,
Notre Dame.
that's correct.
Right.
Which said that to have authentic academic freedom and so forth, the university must not be subject to any authority, lay or clerical, watch the language, external to the academic community itself.
Right.
All right? And that meant, in essence, that the church teaching authority, the magisterium, was no longer normative.
Yeah, sidelined.
No longer normative. They would say, well, we respect the teaching authority of the church. Sure they do.
Yeah.
But they don't regard it as normative. All right? And the result of that was that the Catholic universities ceased to recognize any responsibility to teach authentic philosophy and theology and so on.
And that's when you started having people hired who were atheists or non-believers.
Well, you've
or,
always
you know,
had
different, but
you've always had that, and the Catholic universities were finally given a constitution in 1990, Ex Corde Ecclesiae.
yeah, from John Paul,
That's correct.
from the heart of the church.
Yes, and then Ex Corde required that a majority of the faculty must be Catholic in order to have a Catholic university. And
Just before we go to a break, 22 years later, how much is that respected by the Catholic universities that it was really aimed at?
I haven't got any statistics, but I'll tell you the problem is Notre Dame's. Use Notre Dame as an example. Notre Dame's internal criterion is more demanding. It says that that committed Catholics should constitute a predominance. All right, but part of the problem, not just at Notre Dame. This is not, a comment just on Notre Dame. But the problem is that the hiring tends to be relegated to the departments, and it tends to flatten out the numbers of Catholics. And then the retirements are predominantly among Catholics.
Right.
Because they were hired earlier.
Sure, sure.
So that the
you're seeing the shift.
Number of Catholic faculty is diminishing.
When we come back, let's talk about Newman's idea of Catholic education.
Yeah.
And can all this stuff, and the good news is, well, there is good news. There's good news that's actually coming up from the laity who are saying, enough of this. Or if people aren't going to do it, well, we are going to do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
We'll be right back right after this and talk about reasons for hope, some advice that we can give you on some different things you can go check out and read and learn what. If you can't get it from someone else, well, go get it yourself. So we'll be right back right after this. Well, and welcome back to Right Reason. We're talking about Catholic education and some things that went wrong. Those things have been hashed over quite a bit. But let's talk specifically. Cardinal Newman, John Henry Newman, had a wonderful view of what Catholic education was really all about. Give us a little summary of that.
He was concerned that the Catholic university would not become a rival of the church. Mm-hmm. And he was concerned that there should be he said there should be a jurisdiction of the church in the Catholic university. Cardinal Avery Dulles wrote about this and had a very interesting address at Assumption College in Worcester, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. I think it was just a couple of years before he died, where he talked about Newman. And there and elsewhere he said that Newman very clearly would have been a strong supporter of ex corde ecclesiae. And ex corde ecclesiae requires that every student in a Catholic school must have the opportunity to study authentic Catholic doctrine, and it required that teachers of theology have to have a mandate from the bishop where they would be recognized as teaching authentic Catholic doctrine and so on.
Because you want to ensure what's being taught is correct.
Yeah, which is only common sense.
Right.
So Cardinal Newman was very much, as Cardinal Dulles pointed out, in accord with ex corde. And Cardinal Dulles made an interesting observation. I think it was in that address at Assumption College where he said, the emphasis on diversity. He said, diversity is not the objective.
Yeah.
I mean, we have this crazy idea in the United States, and liberaldom generally, that diversity in its own sake, for its own sake, is a great good. Well, it isn't. Depending on, if you got a football team, you don't want diversity of concepts. Right?
10 wide receivers and one center.
Well, but you
that's diverse.
He said in a Catholic university, there has to be an integrity, a coherence of approach, and the market tends to take care of these things. We're getting we're seeing a failure of so many mainline Catholic universities to do their job. And one consequence is the increasing growth of places that are doing the job.
Yes.
I was on the board of Franciscan University for the required 3 terms, and it's a great place. Just a great place. It is doing the job, and they're accelerating their academic development and so on. And you have others. You have Christendom, which is, again, a terrific
That's in
place.
front row. I had a chance to go see, visit Christendom. We took a little detour. We were taking care of some March for Life coverage in January, so we had a chance to go there. We were there a couple days early. And it was interesting because the previous November, we'd been in Rome to cover some news going on there, and just happened to walk across about, I don't know, 24 or so Christendom students who were there on their Rome semester. And what caught us was they were standing on the Ponte San Angelo, Bridge of the Angels, with singing these tremendous, beautiful Latin hymns. And the cameraman, Charlie, and I were walking back, and we're like, what is that music? It's just echoed, it's dark, it was like midnight. We're walking, I was like, what is that music? And it was, and we got to visit with a group of them there, and it was like, wow, look at this. And you just stood there listening to them and watching them and going, wow, to see this is Catholic. And there's St. Peter's in the background all lit up at night. It was a beautiful thing, yeah. So, the same thing's true of the Thomas Aquinas. Out in California. I got to put a plug in, I'd get killed. We just, at the taping of this show, we just came back from Australia last week, and I'd get killed if I didn't put a plug in for Campion College, also in Sydney. Same thing. Same thing. There's only 5 million Catholics in the whole country in Australia, yet there's this need to recognize, or this recognition of a need to get Catholic education out there, and even on what we would call the high school level. Wagga Wagga has a wonderful school, St. Mary MacKillop. They're starting another one in Perth later on this year. And there is this thing growing up among the laity saying we need to get this back to the way it was.
See, I think the market is taken care of. Like I'm involved with Thomas More in New Hampshire, and you also see Belmont Abbey down in North Carolina.
Other great guys down in Belmont Abbey.
And I think there's a need for this, and you one of your Vortex things, you were talking about the Catholic reaction. You didn't call it reaction. You called it
Counter-Reformation.
Well,
it really is. It's interesting. The earlier on, as we all know, was that all these religious orders were popping up, and now it's like a Counter-Reformation among the laity.
No, I think you're right. Yeah. And I think it's
exciting.
It's developing that way, and there's a thirst for it.
Yeah, there absolutely is.
And you see it. You see it at a place like Notre Dame, where there are very strong but small Catholic enterprises going on there. There's a strong Eucharistic adoration movement, and a strong right to life, pro-life movement.
Which I can assure you, when I was there almost 30 years ago, no way. No way. No one even heard of that stuff.
Right.
I think if you just said Eucharistic adoration, everybody looked at you like you don't even know what you're talking about.
I know. Yeah.
There's no pro-life movement to speak of on campus in the early 1980s. But it was. We had a decent football team then, and that's about all anybody cared about. But no, it's true. And I think another group that does a tremendous job on this is the Cardinal Newman Society.
Yes.
They've done a nice job of committing themselves to, and again, lay run. I mean, yes, there's bishops and clerics that support it and back it, but it's a lay initiative. And that's, I think, what's interesting is all of these things are lay initiatives.
Yeah.
And there really is kind of this, and I don't want to say it's a backlash, but it is a reaction.
Yeah.
It's a reaction to, well, we've lost too much.
We lost too much.
And we need to reclaim this now.
Right.
And the Catholic Treasury is crazy brilliant with what's there.
I know it is.
And you see it. You tell these young kids that you get into these, and young kids meaning college age kids, high school kids. You get into these discussions with them, and they're like wide-eyed, and they start asking, they start thinking, and it's why C.S. Lewis in Screwtape Letters, I'll betcha, had the intuition to have the devil or have Uncle Wormwood say, Uncle Screwtape say, whatever you do, Screwtape, Wormwood, do not let your human think. Don't let him think. Do anything, but don't let him think. Keep all of his temptations away from his mind.
Yeah. Well, I don't think we ought to be, pessimistic, and I don't think we ought to be dour or. This is a great time to be here.
Yeah,
it really is, because these other guys have no answers.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't. I mean, the culture that we're contending with is a culture has lost its mind as well as its faith, because it's a culture that is convinced that they can't know anything. Yeah. Now, why would you take on $150,000 in student loans to study under a guy who's convinced he can't really know anything? Right? But that's the basic epistemology that underlies so much of this. And it's a culture that didactically says that reason is incapable of knowing anything beyond the empirical.
Yeah.
And that proposition can't be demonstrated. You can't demonstrate empirically that reason can't know anything beyond the empirical.
Right.
All right? So the two things go together, faith and reason.
Mm-hmm.
And why should we be apologetic in the face of this accelerating disaster, which is foisted on us by an academic ruling class
Yep.
that has abandoned the intellectual and moral tradition of not just the West, but of civilization generally?
It's probably important to point out, do you think, that the intellectual tradition has been happily abandoned because you have to abandon that first before you can really abandon the moral tradition. And the moral tradition is really what's that's sort of been the goal.
Yeah.
Get rid of these church restrictions and oppressive teachings on all the different things. And but in order to do that, you have to destabilize the source of that authority first, which is the church. I mean,
Right.
the expression of that authority is the church. And then, in order to destabilize the church, what do? You go after her intellectual life.
Right. But the epistemology is crucial here. It's crucial because it involves the question not only whether you can know anything, but whether you can know anything about God.
Right.
Ralph McInerney, again, used to say that there are two things you have to avoid. One is fideism, the idea that all we have is faith, a blind faith. And the other is rationalism, the idea that all we have is
We can know.
our reason, and our reason is limited to the empirical. And he said you got to avoid those two things. Because as John Paul said, faith and reason are like two wings that rise to the truth. And they're both ways of knowing. See, faith, as he said, is a more excellent way of knowing. Because we can reach through faith things that we can't reach through reason. We can reach the Trinity through faith. See?
Right.
We can't reach that through reason. But the two of them go together. What a great tradition we have.
Yeah.
And these bozos are throwing it away and shortchanging the kids in the process.
That's the great. I mean, you can have like intellectual arguments, but I mean, the fact is that as long as that other side is there, it's causing casualties.
Right.
And these casualties aren't just the intellectual depravity or the intellectual life that they're depraved of, but deprived of that, they go out and
Right.
and make bad choices.
Right.
And then they have to live with the consequences of those choices. They have shattered homes, extramarital affairs, fatherless children. I mean, it just goes on and on. It just devolves the society. It's not an intellectual, gymnastics thing that's going on.
No.
It may seem like that, and it may begin as that, but that's not how it ends.
Yeah. That's why I suggest that it's important for any university that wants to be in the Catholic tradition to reinstate some kind of authentic core curriculum, which would involve not only math and science and all that, but also and language, because studying language is a logic course, but also
except for the irregular verbs.
But there's logic to that too. But also the systematic study of philosophy and theology.
Yeah.
See, then what you do, the university is not there to turn out saints as such. It's there to provide the intellectual opportunity and the means of formation so that a kid can become a saint if he is so inclined and can use that. But if they never hear it, what are they going to do?
You just sort of throw them out to the winds and see what happens.
Yeah. But
So you are not pessimistic. Are you optimistic?
I'm hopeful. I think we're on the winning side.
Yeah.
All right, we know how it ends. And I look at things like your operation here, and this is not a commercial, and you didn't you didn't tell me to say
Let me
this.
get my $20 out.
But I think what you're doing is symptomatic or emblematic of what we're seeing. That we're seeing a revival, in the proper sense of the term, of a muscular Christianity,
Yeah.
Catholicity, and it's not negative. It's not hostile to anybody. All right,
Right.
but it is hostile to Satan. It's hostile to
Oh, yeah.
evil. So I think there are great reasons to be hopeful. And the most important thing we can do is pray.
Yep.
Pray that pray for our country, pray for our church.
Yep.
All right.
And I do have to add on to your thank you for the plug. That there are if the first step is knowledge, on the temporal level, if the first step is knowledge, it really is that Catholic knowledge. Who would have thought it? And the Catholic knowledge is really that's happening on the internet. You got wonderful places like American Life League. It's not a Catholic place, but
Right,
it
I know.
is. It's Catholic thought. Cardinal Newman Society, LifeSiteNews.com. All of these places.
Right.
That's where it's happening, and
Right.
and it's wonderful that the technology has given us all an opportunity to do this. No way 20 years ago could we make a TV show and put it on the internet and let everybody watch it.
High tech for me is a ballpoint pen. All right.
Dr. Rice, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
God bless.
Good.
We'll enjoy on the next episode when we get the next season cranking. But for
Okay.
now, signing off, Michael Voris with the show Right Reason, where we reason rightly, and Dr. Rice shows us how to reason rightly. Reason rightly with Rice. Maybe
Hey, that's good.
Maybe that's
I
what
like
we'll call
that.
it.
I like that. Yeah.
God love you. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.